All right, let's jump to the Monday night matchup. We got the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals in Mexico City. And the Niners are 8-point favorites, the total around 43 and a half. And it looks like we may get another week of Colt McCoy. Here
If
in
he's
the
healthy enough, right?
right, yeah,
He's also
well,
banged up.
exactly. But yeah, as we record this, nothing's official yet, but hearing that they may play it conservative with Kyler Murray, and what's quickly shaping up to be a lost season for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this one for the captain spot?
Oh, I have to go with Rondale Moore here. He's caught six or more balls in five of the last six games. And, with Zach Ertz now out for the season, he has an even higher floor ceiling combo here. Although it does look like Hollywood Brown is nearing a return. I don't think that's going to happen here. But at least for this week, Moore's target share is going to be massive. And the fact that he was able to post, a 9-catch, 94-yard game with Colt McCoy under center means he's quarterback proof. So it won't matter too much whether it's Kyler or McCoy under center for him, or DeAndre Hopkins for that matter. So this should be a pass heavy game script for them. They're 8.5 point underdogs right now. So plus he hasn't seen a rushing attempt in the past two games. That's got to change. Could see him easily getting 2 to 3 rush attempts here as well. So he just has a lot of paths to sort of breaking the slate in the captain slot, and I think he will be sort of under the radar here. There's a lot of good options in this game, but Rondale Moore, especially in a full PPR format, is definitely my favorite captain play here.
Oh, I like that. A little bit off the map
Yep.
with Rondale.
Been a little too chalky lately. Had to dig it a little bit deeper.
And what's interesting about that Cardinal passing game, which just adds more kind of drama to the situation and makes me want to tune into in-season Hard Knocks and see what's going on there, is it felt to me like Cliff Kingsbury felt like he could run his offense more with Colt McCoy. Like they barely called any run plays until the latter part of that game against the Rams. And they could have easily come out conservative, two backup quarterbacks and just, run, try to stay in the game. But they had McCoy in the shotgun and just throwing it all around the yard. James Conner pass blocked like his life. He had the pass blocking game of his life. Like James Conner was just stonewalling dudes, in the hole, snap after snap. I think he only ran a route like half of his snaps, spent the other half blocking, and they just threw it. So if we see McCoy again, he is questionable as well. But it could absolutely be a pass heavy game script because it was a pass heavy game script against the Rams.
Yeah, I had the I talked about this with you before, convinced me, the DeAndre Hopkins under 75 and a half yards. That was unwatchable because, like you said, just right out of the gate, it was like a Mike Leach, Cliff Kingsbury, Texas Tech offense, just 99% pass attempts off the rip. So yeah, you made a good point. Like this offense looked a lot more like, what Cliff Kingsbury would want with, Colt McCoy under center. So that was definitely interesting to see. And why a lot of these guys like Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, like it probably doesn't matter if McCoy's under center. It might actually be better.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because you're just kind of taking away a bunch of scrambles and things like that, and whatnot. So, and probable negative game script as well. I'll go. I have two here. One is the obvious play. That's Christian McCaffrey. Got to always mention him. And this Arizona defense allowed at least one touchdown to a running back in each of the past 3 games, with multiple touchdowns in 2 of the past 3 to running back. So I think that McCaffrey has, as usual, another high ceiling game due to the matchup. Arizona's below average in weighted DVOA against the run, and they're bottom 3 on passes to running backs. So McCaffrey's got very similar numbers to Eckler this season in his 3 games with the Niners: 18 touches per game, 96 scrimmage yards per game, and 1.3 all-purpose touchdowns per game as a Niner. So I know Mitchell's mixing in there, but I still think McCaffrey has a huge ceiling. And then for a more contrarian captain play, I think it should be a George Kittle game too, in this one. So Kittle just has this is the best matchup for tight ends, and Kittle played 90 was in a route on 93% of the dropbacks in the last game coming off the bye. The Arizona defense 31st in DVOA against tight ends. These are the total number of catches and yards that Arizona allowed to tight ends, starting with the most recent. And remember, Kittle's pretty much getting all of those routes. So last game was 9 catches for 84. The game before that, 10 for 128. The game before that, 5 for 29 and a touchdown, 6 for 35 and 3 touchdowns, 9 for 68, 8 for 95, 4 for 40, but that was against the Panthers and they still had 9 targets, 5 for 89, 980 and 1, 10, 132 and 2. If this is not a George Kittle game, I don't know what is. So gotta go with some Kittle in a captain spot as well.
Yeah, Tommy Tremble going 3 catches for 34 yards is like the equivalent of Kittle going 9 for 150.
Exactly. And remember, I feel like, as you know, playing fantasy as long as we have, isn't it every few years that the Cardinals just have the league's worst defense against tight ends? Like, it feels like we go in waves with this thing. Like, it's like new iterations of the Cardinal defense with completely different players, and it's just the worst defense against tight ends.
Yeah, wasn't that
how it happens?
TJ Hawkinson's NFL debut was against
Yep.
the Cardinals.
Yep.
One of the worst defensive seasons against tight ends ever, and he just went off for three touchdowns first game, no problem. But yeah, that's a good point. That they're just a tight end funnel defense, and you would think that Brandon Ayuk would be the odd man out every once in a while, but it's been Debo and George Kittle for some reason. Ayuk is this offense. So I wonder if the Cardinals adjust, and like you said, just Kittle has a big game here. So I love that call and the captain spot, coming off a dud like last week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's an adjustment for the Cardinals. This is just kind of what they are. This current iteration of their defense, they're just really good at funneling the ball away from wide receivers. They're top 3 in DVOA against number 1 wide receivers and number 2 wide receivers. And then, a lot is allowed to, the other wide receivers in the middle of the field, tight ends, running backs. So, that's just kind of it makes sense as a defense because statistically speaking, wide receiver production is going to be the most damaging to your defense. So if you can kind of funnel the ball away, it does, work in your favor in theory. So who do you like for dart throws?
So on the 49ers side, I don't know if he counts right now, but Elijah Mitchell, I thought he'd get eased back in, since he's been out since week 1 and, especially considering they have Christian McCaffrey at their disposal now. Instead, he had 4 more rush attempts than McCaffrey last week, 18-14. But as you pointed out, he's just really good. And he's a good fit for this scheme. So they're going to keep using him, whether CMC managers like that or not. So, with the 49ers being big favorites in Mexico City, this is another spot where we could see Mitchell get 15 or more touches. Plus, Mexico City is like 8,000 feet above sea level. These players are going to get gas. So they might not be able to use McCaffrey every down. I think that's going to have Mitchell factor in even more, both backup running backs, actually. So I think the elevation could be a reason to kind of like target these backups, which is why, one of my favorite dart throws on the slate is Keontae Ingram on the Cardinals side, because, the Cardinals released Benjamin. You and I were both celebrating that because, that means Ingram is now the clear backup to James Conner. He was my dart throw on that Cardinals Saints Thursday night football game. Just about a month ago, and he had a good game. He almost had a huge game. They had that touchdown called back. They pushed it back to the 1, I think. But he's a 6th round rookie out of USC. I was actually shocked he went that far in the draft. He gives me, a Kareem Hunt type of vibe. So in a game where it could get ugly and, the Cardinals could be down big in the 4th quarter, he could get all the mop-up duty, get a bunch of dump-off passes by then. So, he's still under the radar right now, but I think after this game, it could change.
Yeah, I love that call on Keontae Ingram because I went back and looked at it, and James Conner, first of all, played 96% of the snaps last week, which is partly why Benjamin got released. He was not happy with his role. But I look back, and apparently Conner only does this against the Rams. He had a game last year against the Rams where he played 96% of the snaps. He has not played more than 82% of the snaps, more than once outside of that. So his median this season is 66%. Last season was 49%. So there's a very good chance that in this matchup and in all of the others, we see Ingram a lot more involved than he was in that last game where Connor pretty much didn't come off the field. And, you know, you made a really good point about the elevation as well. So I think that could factor in. But really, it was an outlier for James Conner to be getting that much work out of the backfield. So love that Ingram call for just a variety of different ways I think that he could come into playing time. And I also mentioned Jawan Jennings. I mentioned him last week and he kind of came alive, had a good stretch of catches there. I think he ended up with 4 catches on the day. But like him again, had a 60% route participation rate last week. That was his highest since week 1. And we already mentioned Arizona, you know, they funnel the ball away from top 2 receivers. So that would benefit Jennings. Once again, running a lot of routes on the inside these days. And the Cardinals 23rd in DVOA against non-number 1 and number 2 receivers. So looks like Jennings is continuing to play most of the meaningful receiver snaps over McLeod. And that makes sense because they really like Jennings for his blocking. So McLeod is more, you know, they're still going to be able to get the ball to McLeod on the punt returns and things like that. But Jennings is usually going to be on the field as that number 3 wideout. So like Jennings as well.
Always like Jennings as a dart throw call. Always gets overlooked, but you know he pops up. You know, every few games has a big game. And one more thing with Keontae Ingram, just in season long formats, I was saying to stash him because you know he's a James Conner injury away from being potential RB2, and it's James Conner we're talking about. You know, he's one of the more injury prone starters out there, and even if Conner stays healthy the rest of the season, Keontae could develop, the Chase Edmonds role they don't have right now. So, I think he's better than Eno Benjamin. So, he's a guy I've been saying to stash in season-long leagues. One other guy I wanted to just mention and hear your thoughts, but it's Trey McBride. With Zach Ertz out for the season now, while it's been a very disappointing season for McBride, he was the top tight end prospect to come out of the draft. The Cardinals took him in the second round, which I thought was bizarre because they already had Zach Ertz locked up. It kind of reminded me of when the Eagles took Dallas Goedert, which is kind of ironic because McBride sort of gave me Dallas Goedert vibes at Colorado State. So he's been off to a slow start, 4.4% target rate on his routes run this year. But, rookie tight ends get off to slow starts. So do you think he could bounce back and, maybe have a big enough game here to break the slate?
He's certainly, yes, absolutely, because he will get the usage. I have him projected for nearly 90% of the snaps. So that's kind of sliding into that Ertz role. Remember, you only have the veteran Steven Anderson, and I assume they'll elevate Max Williams to be that third blocking tight end. But he'll get the opportunity. Obviously, he'll probably be last in the pecking order, but that's all you're looking for is snaps in this spot. And I do think for what it's worth, for anyone in season long with, I do think McBride has a better shot of producing than a guy like Jack Stoll, who ironically is taken over in Philly, because I think what's going to happen with Stoll is, it's going to be Stoll, Calcaterra, and Tyree Jackson kind of splitting that receiving role because Stoll is still the blocking tight end, more so. So I think with McBride, you're kind of getting that potential for 90% of the routes, just like with Ertz. Whereas with some of these other guys, it's going to be split up. So certainly do think McBride has a lot of upside, and he'll probably be chalky. I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
Just being kind of, but we'll see, because they sometimes they kind of price it where you don't want to go too much on a guy like that. But I certainly think he has the upside. What are the luck rankings looking like in this one?
This one, it's pretty close again. It's, the 49ers rank 23rd, Cardinals are 18th. So they're both on the unluckier side of our luck rankings, but neither team is expected to, regress going forward. They're both about the same. So it's a differential of 5. So that doesn't really indicate a play on our end.
Yeah, I think I will say, don't, if the Cardinals are starting Colt McCoy, don't count them out, because we've seen this last year as well. They think, the Cardinals with Colt McCoy, that's going to be a loss, and then they go blow somebody out that they're better than. So And I believe Colt McCoy won a game against the Niners as the backup for Arizona at one point. So yeah, it's
Yep.
definitely not a situation.
Week 9 last year.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was against Trey Lance, I believe. But yeah, either
Yeah.
way, I wouldn't count them out. So we mentioned Ingram, we love him, but if we want to go contrarian, James Conner, there's always that upside that he does get another 90%. It's a tough matchup, but it's not out of the question that the Cardinals actually do have a positive game script here. I should point that out. And we do have a fullback on this one, a guy that I bet against on the last time. What was it? Yeah, last week he was on the primetime slate. Ended up going with him under 1.5 catches. Hopefully they hang that line again. But Kyle Juszczyk, I do think he's obviously in the upper echelon of fullbacks that we talk about for DFS if you're just looking for a dart throw touchdown. But one thing to kind of note is his routes run, because they're getting McCaffrey and Mitchell so involved. His routes have kind of been cut in half, which I think is going to continue going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. You made that point last week. I think that's why you're on the under. But typically, he's elite, probably the top fullback for these slates. He's running a route 45 to 50% of the time. But they've never really had a pass catching back the caliber of Christian McCaffrey. So that certainly is cutting in his production. So he's probably going to be a little bit more popular than he should be. So yeah, I don't think he's a great play here. Yeah, especially the potential game script.
He'll be on the field. That's the thing. So they could always do something where, I think he still has that touchdown potential because they could, they've run so many plays where he's just a blocker and he's kind of H-back moving around, but he just ends up blocking that. If they wanted to do a play action, I think they could get him kind of wide open, but just down to down. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get you those 3-4 catch games that he was getting you for a while this season, even. So yeah. All right. That is going to wrap it up for the Week 11 Fantasy Flex Night Shift podcast. For more great fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full player projections episode out now over on the Action Network podcast channel, and our fantasy preview episode right here on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. Also, check out the news and waivers episode of Fantasy Flex every Monday from Samantha Praviti and Mike Triplett. ActionNetwork.com for all of our NFL rankings and projections, fantasy betting content, all that good stuff, as well as FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and models. You can follow Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker and me at Chris Raybon. And you can find us at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.